Kitty Bates here from Pop Turniv with an exclusive Screamfest interview. We are talking to director Allisyn Snyder about Howdy Neighbor, which is having its LA premiere at this year's Screamfest Festival in LA. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Oh, that hearing you say that is just absolutely unreal.
It's pretty crazy. No, the creative process is also overwhelming and stressful because you make this movie, you make this movie, you wrap it, you submit it. There's all these unknowns, and it's like boom, Screamfest premiere, right?
It's an absolute dream come true. I'm so excited to see it on the big screen with so many of my friends and family who have never seen it.
I know. It's so crazy. I have so many questions, so I'm just going to get into it.
Yeah.
I mean, well, one thing about this is, obviously I got kind of description. There's a poster that's kind of out there. You do have kind of Instagram. So people know that, you directed this film, and a lot of people that you've worked with before in the past and your friends are in this movie. But the thing that kind of caught me off guard a little bit was how it was kind of filmed. So obviously not a spoiler alert, but it's filmed through a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of FaceTime calls, the technology aspect of it. So what were the conversations like about how you shot it? Like, was this shot during the pandemic, or I'm just curious about that?
Yes, yeah. So it was also written during the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was, it was a big thing. Matthew Scott and I were kind of each other's creative writing buddies during the pandemic, keeping each other creative and accountable. And he wanted to write something that was, one actor to a room pretty much for 90% of the film. So that's kind of where it originated, but it also ended up being the perfect way to tell a story about parasocial relationships and stalkers, because you get to see him being stalked both in person and online. So it was something where the idea started coming together. Matthew Scott started writing. His script was pretty simple in terms of what was actually visually on screen. It was mainly hitting what needed to be said and the beats that needed to happen. It was really my husband, Dylan Snyder, when we sat down to talk about the film. He's the director of photography on it, and just my creative partner, another half and everything. And the two of us worked out this way of shooting where we did it kind of like a musical. So everybody rehearsed ahead of time, and we recorded the rehearsals and dipped their scene partner's audio for them to act with on the day.
Okay. Yeah.
That allowed us to be able to shoot with different actors at different locations on different days doing the same scene. But, somebody's take 2 would still match with somebody else's take 8. The timing was consistent.
It was excellent. I loved it. I was just caught off guard because you get the log line and everything and you get the premise, but I had no idea it was going to be filmed that way. So I was like, yes, that's so cool, actually.
Yeah, the screen life genre is such an underutilized genre.
Have you watched Host? Have you seen Host on Shudder?
Oh, absolutely. So absolutely. Good. I watched it alone, which was probably not a good idea. It was like, Dylan's working. Let me see what I should put on this evening.
Is it exciting also working in horror at a time where, it's always been around, but there's this big kind of surge in popularity in the genre. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely excited to be working in horror, especially alongside, Ari Aster is a huge inspiration of mine, and a lot of our other films and projects that we're working on are going to have a little bit more of that cinematic look. But yeah, the screen life was something where horror has always been a genre that, especially for independent filmmakers or first-time directors, can be a little bit of an easier genre to step into.
100%.
And especially with screen life. So it was something where
it's not too expensive to come up with amazing ideas if you think about that.
Exactly. Yeah, it was pretty much like I would say a resourcefulness. I love horror, but I would say a resourcefulness is what definitely pushes me into that genre, and particularly screen life.
100%. This was actually a question. You brought it up, but Dylan was a DP on Howdy Neighbor, and I just kind of wanted to ask you: is it are you able to kind of turn it off sometimes, or are always the conversations like this work get kind of squeezed into the conversations? I always thought about that.
Good question. No, we're not. We're not able to turn it off.
I was about to say I have friends that are also creatives as well, and they live together, and it's the same thing. They just can't turn it off.
Yeah. It was literally we were teaching acting classes throughout an entire day. It was 10-hour acting classes one day. And when we got home, we were like, no more work. Let's shut off our phones, no emails or anything. But we had gotten home at 7 or so.
Mhm.
And it was something to where we were going on a walk later that evening. It was like 10. We were like, we have so much time. Like, what is happening? We're like, oh, this must be what it's like to end your job earlier in the day and like actually have your night.
And I do have to say, because the movie kind of focuses on, the real dark side of fandom and stalker, and a lot of the people in this film, like yourself, grew up on shows on, Disney Channel, and, I feel like there some, like, maybe some had more than others, but like, I'm sure it was like, reading the script maybe was a little bit like not close to home, but it was kind of one of those things. Wow, like, yeah, like, was that like, did you have conversations with the cast about that? Like, oh my God, like, this is kind of relatable, a lot more than it should be.
Yeah, unfortunately, way more than kind of relatable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, we've all had pretty awful stalker experiences. I remember particularly meeting up with Allisyn Snyder to film their scene and talking about some instances with they would teach dance classes, which is a really difficult situation for somebody who has stalkers because you're public about where you are every week. It's like you work at this dance studio and you will show up, and even like we're posting about this screening. It's like people are gonna know where I am.
Oh
And
yeah. Yep.
it's a very tricky thing, and I think working on this film highlighted something that I've always found really funny. If you're told to engage your fans and be really friendly, but then it's like, don't engage crazy though, and like if you have stalkers, don't engage them. It's like, well, my fans are telling me that they want to marry me, so like where's the line?
That's good. That is the question. Like, where is the line? I don't even know.
Yeah.
And it was a big part of your life too. If you think about it too, like it was at a time where that was some of your first kind of projects, right? So that's also doesn't help as well, where you're not used to it. You can't prepare for that. You're a kid if you think about it.
Yeah, it was even wilder too because when our shows were coming out, that's like when Twitter was launching. So like I feel like the parasocial relationship in terms of like the internet, that really was coming about as we were coming into the public eye too. So
are you prepared? Like, I feel like you get prepared. Dylan too, because Dylan, worked on Kicking It, which is like one of my favorite shows. I used to watch that show all the time. I was a big Sunny with a Chance around in person too, but Kicking It, I loved it. It was awesome. But like, I'm sure you work on those shows and there's so much going on and everyone knows, you know what I mean, about like the schedules and everything specifically. I'm sure you start getting prepared for all the questions in the world, right? You know what I mean? Like that happens at some point, right?
Absolutely. Disney definitely prepares you for just about anything.
Yeah, 100%. And a couple more questions about, I think the screening is on the 11th of October, right? In 2 days, which is crazy. That's Howdy Neighbor. Like I said, it's packed with so many kind of things. At the end of the day, the slasher component and the scare component is the thing that really I love the most about it. Was that kind of the element from a director point of view that you really wanted to focus in? Was it kind of a combination of all these elements of like the fandom, the stalkers, the scary, like the technology? Like what was the big element you really wanted in this movie?
Yeah, I really wanted it to feel real. Which is why we took so much care with how we tackled the screen life elements. I wanted it to feel real. I wanted you to get close to the characters. I think that's kind of ironic for a film about parasocial relationships, but I wanted you to feel like these characters are your best friends, and that way you really feel for them as things kind of turn from comedy into horror.
100%. And it's, the comedy component, but like the concept of this movie was super terrifying. Obviously I think it's just like that was the one where it's like, oh yeah, like maybe this is supposed to be a fighter or not, but it's like, oh, like this is scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think especially because with stalkers, it's just sort of that looming presence and you don't know when anything's going to happen, if anything's going to happen. So it's the perfect story for building suspense.
Is it starting to hit you a little bit more that people are going to finally be able to see it? You started at the beginning of the interview, you're like, you couldn't believe it, but like it's crunch time if you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm just beyond excited. I've been so like in my cave working on the post-production of it, as well as working on post-production for Dylan's directorial debut as well.
Wow.
So it's just a lot of screen time, a lot of editing.
I'm a creative as well. Like we're in the process of wrapping a lot of like shorts that I wrote and produced and everything. So it's like, yeah, we're trying to launch the Pop Turner Pictures umbrella. We want to do a lot of different things. So it's like 100%. It's so much work, but it's fun.
It is fun, and I do definitely get fulfillment and enjoyment out of the work, but I'm so looking forward to Wednesday of just like finally being able to like pop a bottle of champagne, go out and celebrate a victory lap. It's much needed.
Congratulations, seriously, because I had so much fun with the film and it gave me a lot of scares. We love horror movies because they're literally the equivalent, in my opinion, of roller coasters, if you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I love roller coasters and I love horror movies, so it's just kind of like match made in heaven.
That's one of the biggest things I always say when teaching acting classes is, make it a roller coaster. Make sure you have somewhere to go.
100%. And Howdy Neighbor is having its LA premiere at Screamfest on Wednesday. Yeah. All the information for all the tickets and everything. Allisyn, so great chatting with you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. And thank you for all the kind words about Howdy Neighbor.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an Instagram account for the movie. They could check that out, right? Is it Howdy Neighbor film or movie? I think it's something like that. Movie. Yeah. And then if they put Allisyn Snyder, they'll find you on Instagram as well, right?
Yeah, my name is spelled funny. It's Allisyn. So if you type that in on Google, you'll find everything I do.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Pop Turner. If you do.com/PopTurner for previous episodes, Howdy Neighbor is having its LA premiere at Screamfest. Until next time, this is director Allisyn Snyder and Petey Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Turnative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Pop Turnative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.